Okay, so welcome to day two. I am just going to very quickly give a sneak preview in regards to I've managed to get the droplets now actually connecting across the network. And then after this, I've just gone out for a ride outside just to talk about the rest of the project, my thoughts, what I'm hoping to come up with. Let's just click join. So now what we can see is after linking up the network, we should actually have the same representation of droplets rather than both clients sporting them independently. And the only issue I'm having at the moment is, as you can see, the pickup on the dedicated client, the first client that started, is what's called the master client. It looks like it has a lower latency. There seems to be a little bit of delay on the secondary clients. I just need to do a bit of research on that. But also, in conjunction with that, I have been trying to put some thoughts out on the board. So I'm going to share this with anyone who wants to see it. It's just a public dashboard. I'll get rid of my bookmarks so it's clearer. Public dashboard that's just showing what I'm currently working on, what's been completed, what's on the to-do list. And I'm probably going to put up an ideas list just to take on suggestions and maybe work out a bit of a voting mechanism. So I've got some player controls I need to work on, adding in the extra sprites, playing around with the collision detection between the players, and working out the battle logic, fixing the camera so the camera actually follows the players. Also, I'm finding that rotations that I'm implementing isn't consistent between player one, player two. We're seeing different versions of how fast people are rotating. Also, I want to improve hitboxes around the actual fractals themselves, so they're nice and accurate rather than being circles right now. So in theory, if the fractal's a star shape, in between where there's no fractal, it's actually colliding with other objects still, so it's not very accurate. And yeah, there's some latency issues. So I've got to be on the to-do list, and that's obviously going to keep growing now as we think and plan. But I'm going to head outside and go for a ride for the remainder of this video. Hang around if you want to just have a chat. One wheel is possibly the best invention that I've ever come across in my whole life. It's so relaxing to ride. You just lean forward, accelerates, you lean backwards, accelerates. For me, I love snowboarding. I have gone twice in my life. I wish I could go more, but it's just not something I can fit into my agenda at the moment. Hard with the kids, family, and in Australia we've only got a few options for snowboarding, and not a lot of mountains. But this is the closest thing that I can get to it, and I love occasionally just getting out and just carving through the streets. So currently we've just wrapped up day two of my Fractal game jam, and I didn't get the chance to get heaps done yesterday. I had family visiting, so I couldn't quite get on the computer for a few hours to grind. And I feel like personally I need to get in a bit of a flow state and just get through a high volume of work in chunks, small chunks of time, especially with topics that I am not an expert in. I've spent a lot of time over the last 10 years in systems design, testing, designing database queries, but not a lot in game development. So I'm a bit of a generalist, and it means I'm actually having to learn a lot of the libraries, how to code, all the different functions that you have at your disposal within Unity, all the tools that let you, build your game efficiently, best business practice. There's a whole lot that I just don't know. So for me to actually game dev, I need to be focused. I need to be reading. I need to keep testing, trial and error. It's not something I can just do mindlessly. And I don't know if you ever do get to that state where you can do it mindlessly, but it's hard for me to get in and get out, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So what I did manage to do though is to start to play around with fixing up one of the issues I had the other day, where the water droplets were only being spawned client side. So as players were jumping into the game, everyone was spawning their own droplets and they weren't synchronizing. So I might say that a droplet is over here, the other player says that a water droplet is over there. So we all have a different version of what's actually going on. So now it's actually being spawned centrally on the master client, which is the first, and I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but the first person to, actually don't know where I'm going, the first person to join the server is currently the one that's now spawning the water droplets and synchronizing that information out to all the other players. This may not be the best long-term solution. I guess I'll find out with some play testing what the drawbacks are.
I'm noticing that because I have it currently set up that the master client, so player 1, the first person who joined the game, their PC is spawning the droplets. It takes time for the droplets to be collected by other players. There seems to be like a latency rather than an instantaneous pickup. So I've got some testing to do with multiple players, see what the experience is like, and then see if there's any other way for me to actually spawn droplets. I've been talking about server side, but I'm not actually sure if I can spawn droplets from server side using the Photon Unity framework, or there does always need to be a master client concept where there's a central server that's handling the communication between all the players, but one of the players' clients still essentially needs to handle a lot of the logic. I'm not quite sure there just yet, but I've got a bit of research to do. Also, I've been working on different... Let's work out where we're going. I've been working on different Kanbans to track all of my different changes. So what I'm planning to work on later today, let's see. Some of the things I wanted to work on today is implementation of a red sprite, so another player that we can choose from to play with. Also, I need to implement collision detection for the players that are bumping into each other to be based on the amount of points that they've accrued. So there should be a visual representation as to how many points you have accrued. And I'm not sure if I'm going to expose this information through also like a numerical value that's that you can see. So let's say that you've collected 100 water droplets, your player is so large. If you come across another player that has only collected, say, 40 water droplets, they should physically be smaller than you, and therefore you should be able to consume them and delete them from the game. So I need to implement that sort of check, which I believe requires for me to do like a query. So when one player bumps into the other player, your player script needs to do a query to the other player's attributes and say, we need to do a comparison here. If the other opposing player has more points than me, then I die. If the opposing player has less points than me, then I die. Then they die. Now, some other thoughts I've been thinking about lately with the game is to try and understand, and I've had a brief discussion in the chat, should the game run in perpetuity, so the levels never actually end, and when you click play, you just join into an existing game whereby there's someone that's really large, there's everyone else that's sort of joining the game as well, and your sort of goal is to take over and become the largest fractal in existence on that map. So I'm trying to work out, is there a win mechanism where the game should end? Or is it about trying to take control of the server from the person who's the largest? And then you wonder, how do you take over the person that's the largest? One of the examples out there that exists right now is Agar.io, and there's these viruses. So Agar.io is you're a cell, and you're getting larger as you're going around the world collecting Agar, you're this cell. Yeah, whatever you are, you're essentially getting larger. There's these viruses around the map that split your character up into multiples. So if you say had one character which was a super large cell, which is presented as a big circle, if it was say worth about 1,000 points and everyone else is like 600 points, 400 points, what could potentially happen? Now I haven't played the game recently, but let's say you hit one of these viruses and it splits your cell up into say 5 cells. Each of your cells are worth 200 points each. So it essentially splits up your total power level across 5 different power levels. Out of 200 each, which actually makes it so other players that say had 400 points can actually consume your smaller bodies, and they can become bigger. So if they came at you and they had a 300 point body, but you were 5 200s, they'll consume one of your 200 points, then all of a sudden their 300 point body has become 500 points, they're larger, and essentially they can just go and consume your whole body because you've been split up. So there needs to be a mechanism to break down and defeat a larger player, and then there needs to be challenges set forth around the place that can make it challenging for a person who's dominating the whole game to They have to avoid these obstacles or avoid players with special abilities to split them apart. So this is where it's a completely open-ended concept. I'm definitely not sure which direction we'll go down, but I wouldn't mind prototyping a few different options. I'd really like to get across the road here. Trickiest part's probably on the one wheel is getting comfortable on the lean, left and right lean, and then also just looking at for surfaces that you know are a little bit tricky, like if it's really sandy here or really fine dirt, you can slip out a bit, or the wheel can spin underneath you and it just won't go anywhere, obviously. A little bit of traps for new players. So some other things on the cards coming up next in my development cycle is being able to also put in a name and see your name in games. So when we go into a multiplayer battle, we can see who's who, and probably playing around with the leaderboard concept, which may expose your point system, how many points have you ingested. And other concepts I'm sort of needing to dabble with and ponder on and see what people think. Is how to best utilize the information from the fractals, these attributes, without making it entirely pay to play. So at the moment, one of the concepts would be, you know, if you're going to use velocity, velocity may allow your player to be quicker. I need to work that out. I think it might have to be like a max velocity speed where maybe you press the space bar and you get like a little boost for 2 seconds or something. So high velocity players have got that sort of benefit. Then high altitude players might be able to get to certain parts around the globe that other players can't. So let's say water droplets have been spawning and accumulating on top of one of our famous I don't know what the largest mountains are, if they're in the Himalayas or wherever, but there might be sections that are only accessible by fractals that have got a high altitude statistic, that they can actually get that high in the mountain. Also, we've got rotational speed, so if a fractal has a really slow rotational speed, they're just going to move around like a star-shaped object. Whereas if they've got a 360, we could have some sort of I think maybe 250 is the highest I've seen. I'm not sure what's actually out there for rotation, but it might mean it's a 250-degree rotation every second, so quite a quick rotation. And the benefit of that is your hitboxes around your fractal will be based on the shape of your fractal. So obviously, if you're spinning quicker, you sort of actually have the surface area more similar to a circle, rather than if your rotation is static, your surface area is based on the pointy parts of your fractal sticking out. Oh yeah, and in regards to some hurdles I've had, I found that when I was instantiating and creating droplets on the map from the central master client, my game was bugging out and dropping out due to my subsequent players. So if player one creates the game, or the first in the game, currently the Photon Unity system will say player one is the master, it's the host, so it has like administrative rights to a few different aspects in the game. And what I was finding is that I made the master client always be the one that's spawning the water droplets. And in that instance, then if you had player 2, 3, 4 come in to try and consume the water droplets and therefore grow, get larger, the consumption logic is that it tries to destroy the water droplets. And I was getting my game crashing saying you do not have authority to destroy the water droplets that have been created by the master client. So now what I've done, and once again, this is going to be so interesting to see from a latency game experience perspective. You don't want player one to have the advantage that they've got zero latency, but I've got some playtesting to do and some research to do as to how you best handle this. Right now it looks like when you collect a water droplet, it is slightly delayed, because what it does is it sends a request through to the master client and the master client goes up, I've detected a collision, my water droplet's been hit, okay, the water droplet needs to be destroyed. And that's the notification. So it's super interesting. And that bounce cycle is, depending on your latency, it might be anywhere between 50 to 300 milliseconds. So you get some slight delay. And I'm sure there's ways around this. It's just a topic I've never got involved with, and I'm super intrigued to find out and obviously do some research. And it should be fun. If anyone knows the answers to this, let me know. I am a beginner at best with Unity development, but I'm pretty confident in being able to find the answers, but they just won't be as quick as someone who knows the answers up front. But I'll enjoy the journey and try and take rest along the way. Whoop, I'm gonna get bogged here. Maybe. Let's see. I actually don't know where I am, I'm just cruising. What is this? Glen Huntley Drive Reserve. Let's head this way. Super beautiful out here though, super beautiful. So one other aspect I've been personally struggling with is to try and keep a level-headed and make boundaries at home. So currently I am working from home. I've got a business office, and I might have my kids come out or my missus come out, and it disrupts me, and I'm trying to work through that mentally, how to stay focused with disruptions, and also how to do a better job at respectfully telling people to not interrupt me. It can be a little bit frustrating if I'm on a phone call and my kids, who are 6 and 9 and 2, don't understand and will keep, poking and prodding. So I sort of, unfortunately, I don't actually have the ability right now to lock my door. That's another story altogether. We had a Tesla Powerwall installation, so our property and our business location is completely off grid, and we've been having our power walls dropping connection. They've had their own technical difficulties where they'd be dropping power entirely. So they'll have plenty of battery in them, but they're just disconnecting, and it's killing my computers, my servers and everything. So I've had to run power cables to a backup connection that's to the street. So there's a few power points at my house that are connected to the street still for backup emergency. So I've got all these power cables running across my business premise to get to my computers, which mean I can't actually shut the door at the moment, so my kids and everyone can just walk in at any point in time, because there's these power cables that are obstructing the door from being able to close. So that's on the back of my mind, that I'm contemplating, rehanging the door and cutting it at the bottom so I can shut the door to try and, prevent interruptions, because, yeah. But,
Alright, so that's pretty much it for this video. There isn't a whole lot of substance left over, so I'm just going to end it there, and I'll see you guys in the recap for tomorrow. Have a good one.